This is the Hidden Killers podcast with Tony Brueski.
Featuring guest author John Glatt on the history of the Murdaugh family.
Had the boat crash not taken place, would the house of Murdaugh still be standing today, or would it just be sitting there swaying in the wind waiting for another tragedy to strike?
Exactly. I mean, if the boat crash hadn't happened, we may never have heard of the Murdaughs. They might have just carried on, making money, having a good time, and, we wouldn't even know the name. But it was the boat crash, I think, that set the ball rolling for their destruction,
How did that boat crash affect the relationship of Alec and Paul?
One doesn't really know. I mean, Alex was very supportive of Paul. I mean, when they were in the hospital straight after the boat crash, Alex and his father, Randolph, they turned up at the hospital, to do crisis management, to try and shut everybody up about what happened. And they were doing everything. I don't know quite how it affected their relationship, but it must have been very strange, as Paul was indicted for, causing death by being over the limit with alcohol, and things were coming to a civil trial.
I would imagine so. I mean, it really, from the outside looking in, it blew the cover off of a lot of things in the Murdaugh family that Alec probably didn't want to have out there in the open. Do you think that created a sense of resentment between Alec and his son, or was the bond there stronger than that, even with a malignant narcissist like Alex Murdaugh?
Yeah, I think there's the Murdaugh family bond. They stick together, for the Murdaugh family name, as we can see with young Buster and his recent interview with Fox Nation, where he's defending his father right out, and I read some of it doesn't come out till tomorrow, but I saw some of the transcripts of what's been released. And I don't know if he was in the same trial as I was,
Yeah. Well, I mean,
it's pretty cut and dry to me. But I think the Murdaugh family name is the most important thing, and I think he was probably under a lot of pressure to, support his father. But having listened to so many, about more than 200 of their conversations from jail, which were made public, under a Freedom of Information Act, you can hear how strained it is between Buster and his father, Alex.
Tell me about that more, because, you've heard far more than probably almost anyone by listening to all of those recordings. What are some of the pieces that really stood out to you that maybe we haven't heard of yet?
Yeah, my book revealed some of them for the first time, like on the anniversary of what would have been, I think, Paul's 23rd birthday. X was actually organizing a birthday party for him through a third party and Buster at Paul's favorite bar in Charleston. And they were inviting all his friends and everything. And during the phone call, you can hear Alex saying, how pleased it was, how it was going, and things like that. And, had so-and-so been invited. So he was manipulating from, behind bars for that. And he also, during Mother's Day, he made it a big deal to try and pressure Buster through various family members to make sure there were flowers on Maggie's grave, really wanted flowers on Maggie's grave. And during 2 or 3 phone calls, he would impress on Buster the importance of doing that.
I know you had said that there wasn't a whole lot of talk about Maggie and Paul on those phone calls. Obviously, everything was being monitored, so he was smart enough not to say much. But at the same time, did you garner any sense of remorse, of innocence? Of what did you take out of Alex's interactions on the phone for those 200 some calls of what you listened to? What kind of individual was that when no one else was listening?
Well, I think he was totally narcissistic. Obviously he knew he was being recorded, as they tell you at the beginning of each phone call. So he was very clever at what he said. He hardly mentioned Maggie and Paul. But, there was no remorse. There was nothing like, oh, I'm so upset, my wife and son are dead, nothing like that whatsoever. He was, happier talking about football games and how much he'd won from fellow prisoners in various, games, that chess and stuff that they had behind bars. But there was very zero remorse. I mean, as you saw at the trial, I mean, and I think he's a sociopath. I mean, personally, I mean, he doesn't seem to have been affected at all by their deaths. And if he has, he's been manipulating people around him of his innocence,
Was the birthday party, because I found that to be kind of creepy. I mean, I get it if you're out of prison and, it's your son and you haven't been convicted of his murder, of, a grieving parent having a birthday party for a child who has passed. I've seen that before. I think that's a way that some people grieve. But to do something like this and set up this party that you're not even really going to, and your son is dead, is that all narcissistic show just for like, look at me, look how much I love my son. I'm having this party and he's dead?
Oh, 100%. That's what I think it was,
Yeah.
I was showing people that, no, I didn't do anything wrong. I'm still, grieving my son. I want him to have a party. But I think it was done for his family and friends, to, impress on them that he still cared and he was organizing a birthday party. I mean, I couldn't believe it when I heard that jailhouse call, my red flags went up. I thought that was pretty amazing,
Well, and who attends the party put together by Alex Murdaugh? That's the other question.
But it was Paul's friends, Paul's and Buster's friends, and they were invited through social media and things like that. And I think one of his lawyers was involved, as a third party to help set things up, get the bar and everything. So, I mean, and it supposedly went off okay.
How interesting. Obviously, Alec has been in confined places in prison. I know that there's been times where he's been in more of a general population. What is going on with Alec in prison right now? And tell me about some of the things that you've learned of his interactions with others.
Well, I mean, I think right now, he's not in a general population. Now he's, found guilty of the 2 murders. What I understand is, I mean, they can use, I don't know if you saw the pictures of him like half naked.
Yes.
They have like an iPad, I think the inmates can use. They have to take a picture before they communicate on them. And somehow some of these pictures got out there,
Yeah.
But very little is known, about him right now, in jail or what he's doing, But he knows how to survive, And when these jailhouse calls came out, one that really got my attention was he referenced a hardened criminal that has spent most of his life in jail for armed robbery and other things, and how he'd become a kind of mentor to Alex and mentored him through the ways of surviving in jail, and really helped him, and they'd become friends. So, I mean, I think Alex was a survivor outside prison, with everything he was involved in, before he was arrested, and probably within prison, he knows how to survive, And although there may not be millions of dollars at stake, but just the commissary, chocolates and crisps and bad food like that, he still knows how to get one up on the other people.
Is he still being supported by his family outside? There's still like money going into the canteen outside of his control? Is there anyone that's visiting him or still standing by his side?
I'm sure there is money coming in to his canteen. I mean, the family have never accepted, what the jury said, and I never think they will. It's like Buster. I mean, the Murdaugh family name is everything. So I don't think they'll ever turn against him, and I'm sure they're still supporting him. And there's been a lot of, I think, court action to get his various insurance policies, give him access to them so he can pay his lawyers,
And obviously there's still 100-some charges against him. It'd be impossible to go through all of them right now. We've got the Gloria Satterfield case that's there. And there's obviously other tentacles and connections that could go. Where do you see Alec how do you see Alec's life in prison? He's going to be there for the rest of his life unless there's an alien invasion and opens up the prison. That's the only way I see him getting out. I mean, how do you see him surviving in there? Obviously, he's not going to be in solitary confinement forever. He will get out there. It sounds like he was making some friends, but how big of a target is Alex Murdaugh, especially considering there's probably people in there that he helped put in prison?
Right. Very good point. And I mean, I think his lawyers warned him. He says in one of the calls that his lawyer was worried he was going to get a shiv or a knife in the back, Alex never seemed to worry about that. He thought he could handle himself. He works out a lot. I know that. I mean, he was very overweight and out of condition when he was arrested. And pretty soon, he lost a substantial amount of weight working out. And he used to boast to, his sister-in-law about, how his workouts were going. So, I mean, I think he's got himself in shape. Obviously, he's got a big target on his back. Everybody knows who Alex Murdaugh is. And I think it would be like a badge of honor for a prisoner maybe to try and take him down. Who knows, So I'm sure he looks behind his back, all the time. He's a target.
Will anyone ever truly see the remorse that they want out of Alex Murdaugh? I mean, obviously there's the murder cases come and gone. He says that he has nothing to do with it, but he does seem to profess, at least on the surface, a little bit of regret. He's admitted, obviously, during the murder trial to the financial crimes, even though he's pled not guilty to some of the charges now. Is this something where it's just going to kind of drag on for the rest of his life, these charges on and off? More things will probably be unearthed as other things are gone through. I'm just curious as to what your thoughts is on his future existence and his mindset. Will Alec ever show remorse and recognize what he did, or is he just that hardened narcissist until he's dead?
Well, I'm pretty sure he'll never show any remorse or admit what happened that night and tell the truth about it. And who knows if he can confront himself and tell himself the truth about it, I don't know how he survives. And that's what the judge said, in sentencing, that obviously maybe Paul and Maggie visit him every night, and how does he live with that? That's a very good point I thought the judge made, when he sentenced him. It was very moving. And I saw Buster brought that up, in the interview with Fox Nation.
Yeah.
That must have struck a note. But, I can't see him ever showing any remorse. He's probably very actively involved in all these civil trials, all these criminal trials that are coming up, so he's occupied. But once those finish, how's he going to occupy his time? Who knows?
You're locked into the Hidden Killers podcast.
Want more? Start binging on all of our true crime podcasts right now through Apple Podcasts and get an ad-free experience when you sign up to be a True Crime Today Premium Plus member exclusively on Apple Podcasts.
More of the Hidden Killers podcast dropping soon.
Press subscribe now.